Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to talk about a topic that nobody really talks about much, except if they're, quote, joking, which is what to do when you don't really like spending time with your kids or you feel like you don't like your child themselves. So this is kind of a taboo topic in today's age of child-centered parenting, where everybody's supposed to pretend that parenting is the most fulfilling thing that ever happened to them. And for many people, especially if they are struggling with a poor fit between the child's personality and their own, and or undiagnosed depression or anxiety, and or lack of support from a co-parenting partner, this is just really not the case. And so if you do not like your child then, or you don't like them sometimes, or you really never like spending time with them, even though you can objectively see that they're likable, or whatever the case may be, you are not alone. You should not feel ashamed of yourself. That can lead to really terrible depression, where you feel like you are just the worst person in the world. There is no need to feel ashamed of yourself. And in this episode, we are going to give you some real concrete strategies for what to do when you don't like your child that much. And I'll also link to articles that I've written about this. Now, first of all, one thing to understand and to really work on, whether this is alone or in therapy, by the way, goes without saying, if you feel like this, you ought to be in therapy. You deserve that. There's a lot of shame and guilt when you feel like you don't like your child or to spend time with your child, and you need all the support you can get, as well as somebody to validate you and help you see what's normal and what's not. I mean, sometimes you don't like your child because there are really some undiagnosed issues going on with behavior, such as oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, ADHD, depression. Lots of things can make your child objectively very difficult to deal with. And if any of this is going on, then when you tell more of the story to somebody else, they may agree and say that it sounds like there's more going on here, as well as they will be able to help you with coping strategies and to understand what's going on in your own internal world, especially subconsciously, your family of origin issues that may be triggering you to respond a certain way to your child. So that's first of all a good point, and that's where we will start. It's important to figure out what in your child is triggering you and why. Right? I mean, unless everybody hates your child. Like my favorite book, Lionel Shriver's book, We Need to Talk About Kevin. I could link you to that. I love that book because it really gets into the nitty-gritty of what somebody who's ambivalent about parenting looks like and a worst-case scenario. She was actually writing it. I read an interview with the author. She was writing it to figure out whether or not she wanted to have kids, and after she wrote it, she didn't. But she didn't want to have kids after she wrote it. But anyhow, in this book, everybody hates Kevin. I mean, it's kind of objective that he is just a really shitty kid, and we always wonder if it was his mother's ambivalence about him and about parenting that contributed to this, or whether he was kind of a bad seed. That is that's not a psychological term, obviously, but in the book, it's just, is he some sort of evil sociopath, or is he an unloved little boy, or is it a mix of both, etc. So, anyhow, most people are not in this situation, but some people can kind of understand where I'm going with this. If teachers can't deal with your kid, if your co-parent can't really deal with your kid, and I say co-parent, I just mean like it could be your partner, or you could be divorced. Either way, the other parent, if they're involved. If really everybody thinks your kid is very difficult, you are going to probably need more support, and also to bring your child in for an evaluation. Not everybody should think that your child is difficult. There's probably something going on there, and whether that is behavioral, cognitive, mood, whatever. So not everybody should kind of agree that your kid is very difficult. That usually indicates a problem, and your child, nobody wants to be that kid. Nobody wants everybody to not like hanging out with them. So then your child deserves to get all the help that they can, right? So first figure out what in your child, unless you are in that sort of situation where literally everybody agrees that your child is super difficult and impossible. If you're not in that situation, figure out who your child reminds you of. because it's going to be either you, and if you got self-esteem issues and your child is acting like you, then that is really not a good mix. It could be your partner, and you have issues with your partner and your child reminds you of your partner. It could be your mom. And if you have unresolved issues with your mom, this could be triggering you to think your child is just as bad as your mom, right? And then the benefit of figuring this stuff out and why the examined life is so important is because you may realize this isn't really your child that you're mad at. This is what your child is making you think of. So if your child is kind of self-centered because they're a child, and they all are pretty much, and your mom is a huge narcissist, then your child really isn't the problem. Your mom and your relationship with your mom is the problem. And this is really a good thing to find out because you can work on processing and grieving your relationship with your mom, and stop giving your kid kind of this spillover of feelings that really are not about them. So the same thing if it's your partner. So then you would get into couples counseling and you would start to work on the relationship with the partner directly, because if you realize that your partner's a slob and now when your kid is messy, it makes you think that they're just thinking you're going to clean everything up just like your partner does, then again, this is really not about your child at all. It's about your relationship with somebody else, which means that you can work on that other relationship and potentially protect the relationship with your child from that onslaught. So the first thing you need to figure out is, why does your child trigger you so much if the reason isn't that they trigger everybody so much? And I don't mean like the way that they act with you would trigger anybody. I mean like, can they get along at school? Because if they can't, then there's an issue. But if they can get along at school and get along with other people and they just can't get along with you, that isn't just how they act with you. That is a dynamic between the two of you that you are co-creating. And the sooner you see that and the sooner you take responsibility for that, then the quicker you can transform your relationship into something positive. Now, the next thing that you have to do, which is more behavioral than cognitive, is I want you to stop doing things with your kid that you hate doing. Okay, so most of us try to teach our child a lot about the world and set them up for success. Stop doing these things, because if they always end in you screaming at your child and hating your life and hating your child secretly, stop. Take like a week off of teaching your child anything about the world. They will survive. Start doing something instead that you enjoy. Now, if you think my child and I do not enjoy the same things, I really beg to differ. There is a very few mother-child or father-child dyads that can have nothing that they enjoy doing at all that is similar. That would be statistically improbable, never mind the genetic overlap here. It would be statistically improbable for two human beings to have nothing that they enjoy in common. The problem usually is that you've been brainwashed to think that the only thing your child can do is something that is marketed for only children of that age and not something that you yourself enjoy. This is a major fallacy of today's day and age, right? So, yeah, your child certainly will prefer to play Minecraft over anything else, but so if Minecraft is not there, what else would they like? I bet they might like to bake something with you. Maybe and you like to bake anyhow. Or if you don't like to bake, maybe you would like to go out and play basketball with your kid. Or maybe you would just like to watch a movie with your kid. You and your kid can figure out a movie that you both like. If you come to it like, I want to do something that we both like, let's figure something out. I mean, only the most oppositional children will say no. Usually they'll think that that's fun. They'll like that idea. If you've not had a lot of positive interaction lately, they may be really cautious and guarded. And if they're a teenager, they may be obnoxious. But usually on a deep level, a child wants to bond with their parents in some way. And even if that's just watching a video together that you both think is funny, you need to find something that you both like to do, right? So in terms of what I read to the children, I read things that I like. I mean, I read them Lord of the Flies when they were probably, I don't know, what was this, like 2 years ago? So they were 6, 8, and 9 or something. And yeah, that's young, but I like Lord of the Flies. I like that hell of a lot better than reading Charlotte's Web or something like that. So if I liked reading it, then I got into it, and then we all engaged on it. So children really will rise to the occasion. If it's something that you like, try it with your child. Don't just say they're not going to like it because they never did it, or because the first time they try it, they get bored. So ironically, it's this culture of placating and appeasing the children indefinitely and ad nauseum that leads to a lot of parents who don't like spending any time with their kids because they're never allowing themselves to be in charge of what they do with their kids, which is terrible objectively, and understandable then that you would not like being with them, right? If you can never do anything that you like to do. Okay, now the next thing is you got to find something positive about your kid. Like, you got to every day say something positive about your child. And I know, like, a lot of parents will be like, oh, yeah, I do that. When, though? Like, let's think. Like, it's hard for the best of parents to think about, to say something nice every day, some different sort of valuable thing. But if you do this, then no matter what else, no matter how shitty the rest of your interactions were with your kid, you will remember that you said something nice. What are some nice sorts of things you can say about your child? You can compliment their intelligence, their sense of humor, their drive, their creativity, their ability to get along with people, their ability to be flexible, their ability to be persistent, which is code for inflexible, anything. Just literally, go back to some of their evaluations. Teachers are paid to find something that's positive to say about your kids. So go back to that if you can't find anything. And say it. And people like positivity. You would like positivity. Wouldn't you like it if your child came up to you and said, boy, mom, you're really smart? Well, yeah. Well, the only way that they're ever going to do anything like that is if there's a culture of positivity in the home. Okay, so figure out some positive things to say to your kid. Also, stop setting yourself up to fail by doing extended time together when you're not good at that yet. So you may think quality time is an hour. If you don't get along with your kid, an hour is a really long time. It feels like 17 hours. So what you want to do is try to spend 10 positive minutes with your child per day, where there is no instruction and there is no yelling and there is no teaching about the world and there is no moral to the story, and it is just enjoyment. If you can do this, then you are certainly going to make your relationship with your child a lot better and more positive almost immediately. And if you can figure out something to do that you could do in a routine for 10 minutes a day, I don't care if it's watching YouTube videos. I don't care if it's playing one game of checkers, or maybe it's reading one chapter of a book or a few silly poems together, or drawing. Honestly, those adult coloring books, kids love those. Anything that says adult on them, they like. So do that. Any sort of craft, making anything, playing hangman. We're drilling into things that you can do in 10 minutes. There are a lot of them. You may not think that if you have not tried that. Sometimes I play geography with my son for 10 minutes. So, that game where you keep saying something that ends with, so if I say, why can't I think of an example? How ridiculous. So if I say New York, that ends with a K. He says Kentucky, that ends with a Y. I say Yemen, that ends with an N. He says New Jersey, that ends with a Y. Okay, so then that's how you play that game. So and you know how to play hangman already, I hope. If not, Google it. So little games that you can play can make this the day. So when you go to sleep at night, instead of thinking, this sucks, everything sucks, and I hate this and I'm so bad at this, you could think today was the day that I played hangman with my child and he laughed and we had a good 10 minutes. And then, by the way, reaffirm this stuff at bedtime. So if you don't have any sort of bedtime routine, you can create a really quick one where you sit with your kid for 5 minutes and you say, what was your favorite part of today? and they'll tell you something. And then you can say the thing that you did that was fun with your kid when they ask. So here we go. You got a ready-made positive interaction, can make you feel like a good parent. Half of being a good parent is getting some self-esteem going so that you think you are a good parent, which sets you up to do more positive things the next day so that you can be in what we call a virtuous cycle, which is when things amplify each other and make each other better and better and better, the opposite of a vicious cycle, which is down, down, down. So what does this look like in practice? So let's say that your kid is this ADHD 9-year-old and all he really likes to do is Minecraft, and when you pick him up from school, he says everything sucks, right? So you're not exactly sure which category this fits into, if it's my category of kids that anybody would find difficult, or if you in particular just conflate him with his lazy father who is your ex-husband or whatever. I'm trying to use a example that will resonate with a lot of women who feel this way in my office. So here, what do you do with Mr. Wonderful and his not smiling face? Try to ask him to watch something you actually think is funny, like some comedy routine or something you think is funny, not just Minecraft videos. If you watch Minecraft videos, you will hate him more at the end of the day, not less. So why don't you watch a cartoon you used to watch as a kid? Why don't you ask him if he wants to play hangman? Why don't you say, here, let's make something with this Play-Doh that I bought for you 2 years ago. I don't know why it's still here. Let's do something with it and then throw it out. Whatever. Some little activity that you can do together, right? At the end of the night, you ask him to brush his teeth 15 times. He doesn't. You, again, hate everything. You just can't wait for this day to be over. But you remember my advice. You go into bedtime and you say, hey, buddy, I had a good day with you. And he'll look at you if you never do this. And so you look back, whatever. You're just trying to make a new routine. And you say, what was your favorite part of today? And he'll say, well, when I got to play Minecraft for a half hour before you made me stop. And you say, okay, great. Well, my favorite part was when we watched a YouTube clip of, whoever that, figure skating or whatever the hell you watched with him that he didn't seem to hate and that you actually liked. Or when we played hangman, or when I picked you up from school and you told me what happened in math class, or whatever. Make something up that's about him. Because honestly, you got to fake it till you make it. So it wasn't your favorite part of the day. If you say it enough and the kid feels good about himself, he may start interacting in a more positive way, and it will become the more positive part of your day interacting with him, just like you wish it would. Now, this brings me to another really essential point. You're not a bad parent if you don't like your kid. You're a bad parent if you tell your kid that you don't like them. Those are different. One of those things is in your head. When a mother with postpartum depression doesn't bond with her baby, but she smiles at the baby as much as she can, she feeds the baby, and she plays with the baby, and she puts the baby to sleep, she is a good mom, not a bad mom. Not a bad mom. A bad mom would not do those things. So you are not a bad parent if you just don't like your kid, as long as you act like you do. So you got to act like you do. And in the interim, so that your whole life doesn't feel inauthentic, you are going to be going into therapy and perhaps having your child evaluated if they really are quite miserable all of the time. There's probably something going on. And you're going to figure out why you have such a triggering anger and sadness and rage response to your kid, what you can do about it, whether in fact you may be depressed. By the way, this is frequent. This is really frequent that a person who doesn't like their kid gets treatment for depression and then they like their kid because actually they were depressed. Very common. Anyhow, and I actually have an article now that I think about it where that was the problem. The woman wrote in, she hated her life and turned out she was depressed, got on Prozac, and she liked it. The reason that people get ashamed of themselves is because they think that they're bad parents. You're not a bad parent if you don't like your kid. You're only a bad parent if you act like you don't like your kid to your kid. Now, I also do want to say that this gets a lot different with different ages and stages of kids. So, I was not my best with my toddlers, at least the first two, because they came so close together. Especially, I had a toddler, then I had a newborn. But now when they're older, they have a sense of humor. They have intelligence, I mean, they were always smart, but smart for a toddler, it's not that smart for an adult. So as they get older, they are so much more interesting. You can have a conversation with them. For me, it's really important if they're funny, genuinely funny, not like knock joke phase funny, and they have things to say about real topics. So everybody has a stage that they're good at. I liked the baby stage a lot. The toddler wasn't my favorite. And then I like, as they get older, more and more. Some people, they really like the toddler stage, and then as the kids get older and they talk back, in different ways, it's harder for them. But you'll always get to a different stage that you like. Eventually, remember, the entire point of this all is that they're going to be an adult. And you want to think about that, right? I mean, you want to raise a confident adult that remembers a childhood when they felt loved. And at the time that they're an adult, you'll probably like them. You'll hopefully like them a lot and want to hang out with them. So try to picture that. They are going to end up being somewhat like you, for sure, because you're their parent. So in some way, they'll be somehow like you, or they will just be another good way of being. And this is the goal, is to have given them a childhood that they could feel good about later, even if moment to moment you find it difficult to like them right now. So again, I covered a lot of practical sort of tips on how to increase positivity and take a wider view on why you may not like your child. That has to do more with external variables and sometimes with them. Sometimes it is a goodness of fit issue where it's a temperament mismatch. You can't exchange this child for another one, but they have many positive traits that can potentially compensate for this, especially once you learn coping skills and you try to focus on more bite-sized, potential, smaller, easier, positive ways to interact that can get you started and build you some momentum so that you have longer and deeper times during which you enjoy being a parent. And don't forget, as I said, it's very important to understand therapy can help, medication can help. There is likely depression there. I'm not joking. This isn't just, it's not usually just a temperament mismatch. There's usually some depressive symptomatology in the parent that is making them see everything bad, not just the kid. Okay? So if this was helpful for you, please listen to it, learn from it, read the links that I'm linking you to, because they will make you feel a lot less alone in this. Hopefully at least one person will be motivated to seek counseling about this issue from listening to this podcast. This is a favorite topic of mine because I work with people who feel so deeply ashamed of this, and when they learn not to be ashamed of themselves and they have small wins with their kids, it's really transformative. That can make your life into something that feels a lot better and a lot more meaningful in a way that even couples counseling really can't do. Because, the relationship with your child is really key to your self-image, your self-esteem. People think all the time, I'm going to be such a good mother, such a good father. Then they end up feeling like they failed. And they only have this one time, this one childhood of this child's to make good. And yet they feel like they can't do it. And it just can be disabling. The guilt and the shame in a way that even marital problems can't. And so when you can work on this and look at it and try to cut yourself some slack and grace and make these small inroads to transforming the relationship, even tiny little victories every day that can make you feel like, okay, I had a good day. The kid had a good day, or they had a good 10 minutes, or we looked at each other and laughed today. We had a moment of connection today. These things you can build on these. These can be the scaffolding of a whole new relationship with your child. Okay, so I do hope that listening to this is a motivator for somebody to seek counseling, or at least to do further research and to stop beating themselves up and instead try to transform the problem more proactively, which is possible. All right, guys, thanks so much. Please subscribe to my podcast, Write In with Ideas, and I will talk to everybody soon. Bye-bye.